that we've passed the 1,000-day mark of genocide. What are your thoughts on this? And did you expect it to last so long? And of course, you are yourself from Gaza.
I did not expect it to last this long, despite the fact that, Katie, throughout our history, especially in Gaza in particular, we have these kind of, these tragedies that kind of fold into other tragedies. And Gaza has been under Israeli occupation since 1967. Then, we stopped counting when the siege started in 2006. And then we started talking about, well, 1 year since the siege, 2 years. Yet we kind of pushed the reset button and started counting, on a year of genocide, 2 years, and now 1,000 days. So in a sense, we are used to some part of the counting of tragedies, but not to the extent of outright extermination. And the world seems to be willing to coexist with this reality.
How does it feel? The world, as you just said, is willing to coexist with this genocidal reality and enable it.
Well, I am a positive guy, and I will insist on remaining positive. It's just a thing that we Palestinians have to insist on, because the moment we stop trying to be optimistic about things is just the moment that we are going to fall into deep despair from which there is no escape. Our sumud has moved from being a conceptual framework into something functional that we are using on a daily basis, which means that ultimately we are going to win this. We can't possibly lose when we have this much faith. Supposedly, the ceasefire was signed in October of last year. Some of them have been wounded in the war itself, but some have perished because of easily treatable diseases. I had a daughter of my nephew. They waited on the waiting list for the longest time. They thought that because I'm in America, I have the power to make things happen. Call the United Nations, bring the child out to Egypt so she died. She died in a tent.
I'm so sorry for that. I mean, so many people around the world feel this hopelessness and helplessness and despair, but they are extremely, emotionally invested and disturbed by what's happening in Gaza. What are some things that people can do?
Well, there's the immediate thing that can be done now, and there is the long-term aspects of the struggle. The immediate thing is you need to put pressure on your governments, on your representatives. It actually does work. There are various organizations like UNRWA and many others that are actually, like, right now, I haven't, to be honest with you, Katie, haven't always been a big supporter of UNRWA for historical reasons. I mean, UNRWA was supposed to be kind of, just sustaining the refugees, but without offering any political solutions, because it had no such mechanisms, no such mandate. So it's not like we Palestinians have been fighting for UNRWA as if our political aspirations are linked to UNRWA. But suddenly UNRWA is so important to us right now, because as long as UNRWA exists, as long as there's a recognition that there is a Palestinian refugee crisis, and these are people who are linked to international law, UN resolutions, the right of return. And this is what Kushner hates. This is what Netanyahu hates. That's what the Board of Peace, in fact, the Board of Peace, just a few days ago, they came up with this thing that says, that there is no place for UNRWA in Gaza. Why is the Board of Peace so keen on removing UNRWA from Gaza? Why is Ben Gvir so keen on destroying UNRWA buildings in Jerusalem and taking selfies with the destroyed rubble? So support UNRWA, support the Friends of UNRWA, support organizations that sustain the Palestinian struggle. As long as Israel is able to find the balance and the margins to exist as if it's a legitimate country, a legitimate member of the United Nations, as long as Israel is able to carry on with these crimes in Gaza. And I have so much faith in civil society, not because, for any just conceptual random reasons, but because the numbers are telling us that the world is indeed changing. It's changing in Europe faster than the US, but we cannot discount the United States. 41% of all Americans as of February support and sympathize with the Palestinian people versus 36% with Israel. This is unprecedented. We need to use these numbers to push our local politicians, our representatives, all the way to the Congress, so that they would translate this existing support, sympathy, solidarity, and love for Palestine into actual policy.
Journalist from Gaza, Bassam, thank you, Bassam. Someone wrote in the comments. It was encouraging to see that our protest was providing something to the people of Gaza, if that makes sense, even just on an emotional level.
Of course. I mean, I've lived in Gaza until my 20s.
Right.
And I do recall, I mean, this whole emotional component, because when I lived in Gaza under siege. Gaza, by the way, has always been under siege. It's just various layers of siege. Some of you are allowed to leave some of the time. Some of you are allowed to leave all the time and never come back. None of you are allowed to leave, depending on the mood of the Israeli military administration, the Israeli government. But whenever the Israeli army would allow us to go to the sea, and we had very limited number of hours in which we are allowed to access the sea. And by the way, I lived 5 minutes away from the sea. During the first Intifada, 7 years, I didn't see the sea once. So you can't even access the only place that brings you a sense of joy. But whenever we were allowed to access the sea, we used to always look at the horizon and see these ships passing at the very, at the horizon. And we would, start kind of thinking about who are these people. And there's a thing that we have in Gaza culture. Every time a name of a nation is mentioned, it's always we say, بيحبونا? Do they love us? Not do they like us, do they love us? Now Gaza knows that the world knows. And that means so much for Gaza. Not for the sentimental value of knowing, but there is still that hope that maybe that knowledge will translate to action.